It's Mrs. Nelson. We're going to be talking about percentages. Percentages are rates per 100. They are equivalent ratios, which means we can show them with equivalent fractions. So right here I have a fraction bar that's showing 10 hundredths. 10 out of 100 parts are shaded. I'm going to use this to represent 10% because percent does mean out of 100. So what is 10% of 70? Well, I want to find an equivalent fraction, an equivalent ratio, where 70 is my denominator. So I'm going to create that fraction right down here using this fraction bar tool. I'm going to type in 70 equal parts and then click OK. I'll drag that up there, resize this fraction bar, and now I want to shade exactly the same amount of area, showing an equivalent fraction or an equivalent ratio using 70 parts instead of 100 parts. So 10% of 70 is 7. And one way that we can think about that is by recognizing that these are equivalent ratios. So 10 to 100 is equivalent to 7 to 70. That's another way of recognizing this or acknowledging that 10% of 70 is 7 is to recognize that these ratios are in fact equivalent. All right, let's use 10% to find a multiple of 10%. So we know 10% and we want to find 40%. So we know that 10% of 60 is 6. So 10 out of 100 is equivalent to 6 out of 60 parts. So what's 40%? Well, I know that 10% is 60, or excuse me, 10% is 6, and I want 40%. So I need 10% 4 times. I need 10% 4 times, and when I get 10% 4 times, that's going to be 40%. So that means 40% is 4 groups of 6 because 6 is 10%. So that's a way we can reason about 40% if we know 10%. I'm just going to go and draw an equal sign here and show that I added these parts together. 10% 4 times is 40%. 6 is also 10%. 6 out of 60 is 10%. 6 4 times is 24. So what is 40% of 60? 40% of 60 is 24. All right, let's look at another one that we can reason about. What is 25% of 40? Remember, 25% is the rate 25 out of 100. I want to know an equivalent ratio for 25 out of 100, but this time I want it to be out of 40. So I can find an equivalent fraction. I want it divided into 40 equal parts. I'm going to drag this fraction bar up here and resize it so that they're taking up the same amount of area. And then I'm going to shade an equivalent amount of area. And I can see that 25 out of 100 is equivalent to 10 out of 40. So 25% of 40 is 10. If I know 25%, then I can find 75%. Because 75% is 3 groups of 25%. 25%, 50%, 75%. There's 3 groups of 25 and 75%. So if I know what 25% is equal, okay, so 25% is 20. I'm going to know that use that 3 times because 3 groups of 25% is 75%. So 75% is 3 groups of 25%, and if each 25% is 20, then 75% is 3 times 20, or 60. So again, I'm going to show this as if I set it up as an addition problem, and I was just adding each of those parts. 75 or 25% 3 different times gives me 75%. So that equivalent in this ratio of 20 out of 80. 20 out of 80, 3 different times is 60. So 75% of 80 is 60. 60 out of 80. And I could show that with these fraction bars. If I wanted to, I could continue to shade these fraction bars until I get to 75%. And then therefore I would need to continue shading this fraction bar until I get to 60 out of 80. And you'll notice they take up exactly the same amount of area. They represent the same rate or proportion. Let's look at a percentage greater than 100. I know 25% of 32. 25% of 32 is 8, as shown here. I want to know 125%. So I can think about how many groups of 25 are in 125. 25, 50, 75, 100, 125. There's 5 groups. So I could find 5 groups of 8. Or another way I could think about this is to recognize that 100% of a number is that entire number. So 100% of 32 is 32. So if I take 100% and I add 25%, then I'm going to get 125%. I'm going to line those up. And I can see that 125% is, oops, I said 80. It's 8. 125% is going to be 32. I better type that out. 125% is going to be 32 plus 8, which is 40. We're going to be combining those parts together to get to 125%. One more. If 8 is 100% of 8, what is 200% of 8? Well, if I want 200%, I need 2 100%s. So I know 100% is 8. I need another 100% to get to 200%. So 100% is 8. 100% is 8. Together, that makes 200%. So 200% is going to be 16. So as I mentioned at the beginning, a percent is a rate out of 100. And another way that we can think about percents is to recognize that it is an equivalent ratio. It is an equivalent ratio, which can be shown with equivalent fractions, because fractions, ratios, those are exactly the same thing. So if I can show with a fraction bar an equivalent fraction, then I can find the equivalent ratio or equivalent rate, and I can see what that percentage is out of 100. Thanks for learning with me.